Yeah. Load slide. Load slide. Load slide. Yeah. Load slide. Spinning knuckle bomb. Load slide. Load slide. Load slide. Thunder strike. Load slide. Yeah. Load slide. Over here. Over here. Yeah. Load slide. Close slide. Close slide. Close slide. Yeah. Close slide. Close slide. Close slide. Thunder strike. Close slide. 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 Over here. Over here. Over here. Yeah. Close slide. Close slide. Close slide. Close. Yeah. Over here. Over here. Yeah. Hitting knuckle bomb. Close slide. Over here. Spinning knuckle bomb. Thunder strike. Close slide. Close slide. Close slide. Over here. Close slide. Over here. Over here. Spinning knuckle bomb. Yeah. Close slide. Close slide. Close slide. Close slide. Over here. Close slide. Close slide. Yeah. Close slide. 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 Yeah. Close slide. Close slide. Close slide. Close slide. Spinning knuckle bomb. Over here. Over here. Thunder strike. Close slide. Close slide. Close slide. Close slide. Over here. Thunder strike. Close slide. Over here. Over here. Over here. Over here. Yeah. Over here. Thunder strike. Close slide. Yeah. Thunder strike. Hitting knuckle bomb. Close slide. Close slide. Close slide. Hitting knuckle bomb. Over here. Over here. Close slide. Over here. Close slide. 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 Yeah. Close slide. Over here. Thunder strike. Close slide. Over here. Thunder strike. Thunder strike. Close slide. Yeah. Thunder strike. Close slide. Yeah. Close slide. Close slide. Close slide. Close slide. Yeah. Thunder strike. Close slide. Close slide. Close slide. Yeah. Thunder strike. Close slide. Close slide. Close slide. Thunder strike. Close slide. Close slide. Thunder strike. Close line. 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 Yeah. Close. Thunder strike. Close line. Over here. Close line. Close line. Close line. Spinning knuckle ball. Over here. Thunder strike. Close line. Spinning knuckle ball. Close line. Close line. Yeah. Close line. Close line. Close line. Thunder strike. Close line. 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 Over here. Thunder strike. Thunder strike. Over here. Spinning knuckle ball. Thunder strike. Spinning knuckle ball. Yeah. Thunder strike. Close line. Over here. Over here. Spinning knuckle ball. Yeah. Spinning knuckle ball. Spinning knuckle ball. Yeah. Close line. Over here. Over here. Over here. Thunder strike. Close line. Over here. Over here. Yeah. Over here. Close line. Close line. Spinning knuckle bomb. Over here. Close line. Over here. Yeah. Over here. Close line. 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 Spinning knuckle ball. Yeah. Thunder strike. Close line. Yeah. Thunder strike. Spinning knuckle bomb. Yeah. Yeah. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close line. Over here. Over here. Close line. Thunder strike. Yeah. Thunder strike. Spinning knuckle ball. Over here. Thunder strike. Close line. Over here. Close line. Close line. Spinning knuckle ball. Spinning knuckle ball. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close line. Thunder strike. Close line. Thunder strike. Spinning knuckle bomb. Thunder strike. Over here. Over here. Over here. Over here. Thunder strike. Thunder strike. Close the line. Close the line. Yeah. Yeah. Close the line. Close the line. Giving knuckle bomb over here. Close the line. Close the line. Over here. Close the line. Close the line. Yeah. Close the line. Thunder strike. Close the line. Yeah. Close the line. Close the line. Close the line. Yeah. Close the line. Close the line. Close the line. Yeah. Thunder strike. Over here. Close the line. Close the line. Over here. Over here. Over here. Close the line. Close the line. Over here. Over here. Close the line. Close the line. Close the line. Thunder strike. Close the line. Over here. Yeah. Thunder strike. Close the line. Close the line. Thunder strike. Close the line. Over here. Close the line. Thunder strike. Close the line. Close the line. Hitting the bomb. Thunder strike. Close the line. Spinning knuckle bomb. Thunder strike. Over here. Over here. Close the line. Yeah. Close the line. Thunder strike. Yeah. Thunder strike. Hitting the bomb. Thunder strike. Close the line. Close the line. Over here. Close the line. Close the line. Close the line. Thunder strike. Close the line. Over here. Over here. Over here. Yeah. Over here. Hitting knuckle bomb. Thunder strike. Close the line. Close the line. Close the line. Hitting knuckle bomb. Close the line. Close the line. Hitting knuckle bomb. Hitting knuckle bomb. Yeah. Close the line. Hitting knuckle bomb. Thunder strike. Hitting knuckle bomb. Yeah. Close the line. Yeah. Over here. Yeah. Over here. Spinning knuckle bomb. Over here. Thunder strike. Close the line. 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 Over here. Over here. Close the line. Close the line. Spinning knuckle bomb. Thunder strike. Close the line. Hitting knuckle bomb. Close the line. Close the line. Over here. Close the line. Close the line. Close the line. Over here. Close the line. Thunder strike. Spinning knuckle bomb. Yeah. Clothesline. Clothesline. Over here. Thunder strike. Yeah. Clothesline. Clothesline. Over here. Clothesline. Over here. Clothesline. Thunder strike. Getting a bomb. Clothesline. 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 Giving knuckle bomb. Over here. Giving knuckle bomb. Clothesline. 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 Over here. Over here. Thunder strike. Over here. Thunder strike. Over here. Thunder strike. Over here. Over here. Clothesline. Over here. Over here. Over here. Clothesline. Over here. Thunder strike. Clothesline. Over here. Thunder strike. Clothesline. 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 Yeah. Clothesline. Over here. Over here. Clothesline. Clothesline. Over here. Clothesline. Clothesline. Thunder strike. Thunder strike. Clothesline. Clothesline. Thunder strike. Clothesline. 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 Over here. Clothesline. 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 Over here. Over here. Yeah. Clothesline. Clothesline. Over here. Over here. Over here. Over here. Thunder strike. Clothesline. 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 Over here. Thunder strike. Spinning knuckle bomb. Yeah. Clothesline. 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 Yeah. Thunder strike. Clothesline. 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 Over here. Thunder strike. Clothesline. Yeah. Over here. Clothesline. Over here. Clothesline. Clothesline. Over here. Thunderstrike. Clothesline. 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 Giving knuckle bomb. Yeah. Over here. Thunderstrike. Giving knuckle bomb. Clothesline. 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 Over here. Clothesline. Clothesline. Thunderstrike. Clothesline. Clothesline. Over here. Yeah. Giving knuckle bomb. Clothesline. Clothesline. Over here. Clothesline. Giving knuckle bomb. Clothesline. Clothesline. Giving knuckle bomb. Yeah. Clothesline. Thunderstrike. Clothesline. 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 Yeah. Clothesline. 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 Thunderstrike. Clothesline. Clothesline. Yeah. Clothesline. Yeah. Clothesline. 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 Thunderstrike. Clothesline. Clothesline. Thunderstrike. Clothesline. Clothesline. Over here. Thunderstrike. Clothesline. Yeah. Clothesline. Giving knuckle bomb. Yeah. Clothesline. Clothesline. Thunderstrike. Clothesline. Clothesline. Over here. Clothesline. Yeah. Clothesline. Thunderstrike. Clothesline. 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 Over here. Over here. Over here. Over here. Clothesline. Clothesline.
Target locked.
Clothesline. Clothesline. Thunderstrike. Clothesline. Clothesline. Thunderstrike. Clothesline.
Backup requested.
Over here. Close line. Yeah, close line. Yeah, counter-strike. Close line. Close line. Over here. Over here.
Backup requested.
Over here. Close line. Close line. Close line. Thunderstrike. Close line. Giving knuckle bomb. Close line.
Backup requested.
Close line. Yeah. Close line. Close line. Thunderstrike. Close line. 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 Spinning knuckle bomb. Spinning knuckle bomb. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close line. Over here. Over here. Yeah. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close line. Over here. Close line. Over here. Over here. Close line. Over here. Thunderstrike. Close line. 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 Spinning knuckle bomb. Close line. Close line. Close line. Over here. Close line. Close line. Close line. Over here. Over here. Over here. Close line. Over here. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close. Close line. Over here. Thunderstrike. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close line. Over here. Over here. Over here. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close line. Over here. Thunderstrike. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close line. Over here. Yeah. Over here. Yeah. Clothesline. Over here. Thunderstrike. Clothesline. Yeah. Thunderstrike. Yeah. Big knuckle ball. Thunderstrike. Clothesline. Over here. Over here. Yeah. Clothesline. 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 Over here. 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 Yeah. Over here. Over here. Clothesline. Clothesline. Yeah. Thunderstrike. Clothesline. Yeah. Clothesline. Over here. Over here. Yeah. Over here. Clothesline. Yeah. Clothesline. Clothesline. Over here. Clothesline. Thunderstrike. Yeah. Big knuckle bomb. Thunderstrike. Yeah. Clothesline. Clothesline. Yeah. Clothesline. Over here. Over here. Yeah. Clothesline. Over here. Thunderstrike. Clothesline. 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 Yeah. Clothesline. Over here. Yeah. Over here. Clothesline. Over here. Yeah. Clothesline, spinning knuckle bomb. Clothesline, clothesline, clothesline. Clothesline, over here. Spinning knuckle bomb. Thunderstrike. Clothesline. Clothesline. Spinning knuckle bomb. Over here. Over here. Over here. Over here. Yeah. Clothesline. Thunderstrike. Clothesline. Over here. Clothesline. 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 Thunderstrike. Thunderstrike. Yeah. Clothesline. 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 Yeah. Thunder strike. Yeah. Clothesline. 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 Yeah. Clothesline. 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 Over here. Thunder strike. Clothesline. Clothesline. Thunder strike. Clothesline. 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 Hitting the bomb. Thunder strike. Clothesline. Over here. Thunder strike. Clothesline. Over here. Yeah. Over here. Over here. Clothesline. Yeah. Over here. Yeah. Clothesline. 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 Thunder strike. Clothesline. Thunder strike. Clothesline. Yeah. Clothesline. Hitting knuckleball. Over here. Over here. Over here. Thunder strike. Clothesline. Clothesline. Spinning knuckle bomb. Spinning knuckle bomb. Over here. Over here. Over here. Clothesline. Clothesline, 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 spinning knuckle bomb, spinning knuckle bomb over here. Spinning knuckle bomb. Clothesline. 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 Spinning knuckle bomb. Spinning knuckle bomb. Clothesline. Over here. Over here. Over here. Clothesline. Hey! Clothesline. Over here. Clothesline. Thunder strike. Hitting knuckle bomb. Over here. Clothesline. Hitting knuckle bomb. Clothesline. Over here. Over here. Over here. Hitting knuckle bomb. Clothesline. Over here. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close line. Over here. Thunder strike. Thunder strike. Spinning double bomb. Yeah. Close line. Close line. Close line. Hitting double bomb. Yeah. Close line. Close line. Yeah. Close line. 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 Close line, close line, close line. Over here. Yeah. Over here. Over here. Over here. Over here. Yeah. Over here. Thunder strike. Close line. Yeah. Close line. Over here. Spinning knuckle bomb. Thunder strike. Close line. Close line. Spinning knuckle bomb. Close line. Over here. Close line. Over here. Over here. Spinning knuckle bomb. Thunder strike. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close. Spinning knuckle bomb. Close line. Spinning knuckle bomb. Close line. Close line. Over here. Close line. 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 Spinning knuckle bomb. Yeah. Close line. 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 Over here. Close line. 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 Over here. Over here. Over here. Over here. Yeah. Over here. Thunder strike. Over here. Yeah. Close. Over here. Over here. Over here. Yeah. Over here. Yeah. Over here. Close line. Over here. Over here. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close line. Spinning knuckle bomb. Close line. Thunder strike. Over here. Over here. Over here. Spinning knuckle bomb. Spinning knuckle bomb. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close line. Close.
Target locked.
Thunder strike. Close line. Over here. Close line. Close line. Close line. Thunder strike. Close line. Over here. Thunder strike. Close line. Over here. Thunder strike.
Backup requested.
Close line. Spinning knuckle bomb. Close line. Close line. Yeah. Spinning knuckle bomb. Yeah. Close line. Spinning knuckle bomb. Close line.